Welcome back, City Builders. Kodiak the Kodiak here. In today's video, we're going to be going over all of the new mods and some of the new maps that have come out in the past few weeks here for Cities Skylines 2. There are 3 absolutely game-changing mods that have come out in the past 2 weeks that you should really stick around for. Now, before we dive in, almost 70% of you who watch these videos are not subscribed. So if you guys wouldn't mind dropping a subscription, it means a ton. So before we get started, make sure to subscribe, hit that like button, and don't forget to turn on notifications so you can keep up to date with all the Cities Skylines 2 news, tips, and tricks. Without further ado, let's get started. Okay, welcome back, everyone. If you missed the memo or you missed the previous video, we included all of the patch notes, breakdowns, and the words of the weeks into different videos, which I'll leave up in the annotation and down in the description. So this video will entirely focus on mods and maps that have come out in the past 2 weeks, and there have been some absolute stunners. So here we are on Thunderstore, but before we dive on in, I just want to let you guys know that we are branching the channel out. We are making some new unrelated to cities content. I did a full detailed breakdown of Paralives, which is a new life sim game that's basically kind of like The Sims that's coming out in 2025, and they dropped a massive gameplay trailer, which we broke down every second of. So if that's something that interests you, you guys can take a look at that. It will be competing in the same space as Life by You, which is another game by Paradox, kind of in the same vein. So I think it's really good that the space is kind of opening up to more games than just The Sims. On top of that, yesterday, so the day before I uploaded this video, I also uploaded a full, let's play breakdown kind of tutorial video on a fantastic new game that is coming out on the 13th called News Tower. I cannot talk enough about this game. I absolutely loved my time with the demo so far. It's available via Steam Next Fest right now, so the demo is currently available. You can play for quite a long time in the demo too, which is super sick. So seriously, give it a look. It's called News Tower. My video is also going to be up in the annotations as well as in the description, so please take a look at both of those. Now, branching out to that new content doesn't mean that the Cities Skylines 2 content is going away, so let's dive in to some of these awesome mod and map updates. And the first one I want to highlight is if we scroll down here and this Spring Valley map from the Realchair. So if any of you watched my 10 must-try maps for Cities Skylines 2 video, the Realchair was featured twice in that video. So for reference, this is a map maker that I really like, and I think that Spring Valley is in my top 3 of favorite maps. So let's dive on in and give this map a look. So here we are on the landing of Spring Valley, and this is the starting tile right here. So as you can see, it is at the, combination, the crest, the delta, the combination point of 2 rivers right here. And as we zoom out, I think you'll begin to see why it might be one of my favorite maps of all time. This map has such beautiful, detailed mountains over here. Obviously, a lot of trees, and it's almost all spruce, but this is very reminiscent of places like Rocky Mountain National Park, for example, which is a place I was at 2 years ago, and it feels a lot like it. You have the deep mountains followed by a valley down here in the center. I think it's honestly just beautiful. I think it is a beautiful mountain landscape over here. Now, while it's not going to be easy to build in over here right now, I think down the road when we get things more like buildable parks of some kind, if we get a Parks Life DLC and we can build a national park, I see so much potential in here from a Cities Skylines 1 perspective that I know long term we'll get in Cities Skylines 2, and I think that at least this mountain range will provide that for us. Now, on top of that mountain range, which I could dive into every little detail here, the map creator, the Realchair, went through and placed a lot of these boulders, which is still something we don't have access to as general players in the game. And I think it made a lot of these rivers. That one doesn't have any boulders as I'm talking about it. This one has a ton, though. It makes it feel like it has a little bit of variety and depth and realism, that there is a little bit more ground variety, I guess, in the map. Now, speaking of ground variety, one of the coolest things that's actually baked into this map is this ranch over here with this actual 2-track that goes down to the fountain over here, this small fountain, and leads down to the actual farm. So there are decals, I guess, in the back end of the game, but we can't access them. But map makers can access them as part of the map creation tool. So if you actually get into the map maker, you can actually access these decals. And the Realchair has gone through and made a little 2-track, and it just drives all the way down to the ranch. I love this. I love the realistic feeling that this little ranch has on the side of this national road here. There is no big highway on this map also, so keep that in mind while playing on it. And there is another little like orchard town up over here as well, which I think looks absolutely adorable. There's even a graveyard over here that they made, and I'm just honestly blown away with what they were able to do with the assets that we currently have in Cities Skylines too. There's also this lake on the map here with a Stonehenge-like structure here in the center and a ring of stones around it that I think is pretty cool also. Finally, the last thing I want to point out in terms of unique characteristics that this map has is that it has this really cool like delta formation along the shoreline that I'm sure took a long time to make, and I think it looks really nice as well. So anyways, we come back to the starting tile here, and let's actually take a look now at the terrain heights. And it seems relatively flat, but it's like a rolling flat. So if you wanted to leave the elevation alone in a lot of spots, you could, and your city will still have some elevation depth to it. It's what I want out of a City Skylines map in terms of elevation. It's not too much to where I'm fighting with it, but it's enough to add character to my city. And I just, gosh, if you scroll out here, you can start to see it more and more. Like this is a flat area, but then when you zoom in, you can see the little terrain changes, and I absolutely love it. I think it's great. You also have these mountain hill, or I guess these aren't even mountains. These are more like hills over here on this side of the map as well, with a second ocean. This is actually sea here, so you can make two different ocean connections if you really wanted to. But over here, you have access to these hills, so you can make more organic layouts if you wanted to, like organic farms or towns. It is a little steep, so it might be a little difficult to do, but still something that you can attempt if you'd like. So now that we've done looking here at the terrain heights, I forgot to mention that there's also some built-in wind turbines, so you have access to some built-in power. Let's actually check to see if that's hooked up. I never actually did that. It is. So you actually start off with starting power being generated on the map as well. So you can use this to export if you have too much, or you can just keep it and you know, obviously make money off that power. So let's dive into some of the resources. So first off, let's actually go back to extra landscaping tools and look at the water resources. And if we look at the water table, the actual groundwater deposits, they're in pretty realistic spots. You have them at the hill peaks from like snow melt and stuff like that, and the river basins where the water table would be a little higher. There's some other pockets as well, so you can kind of draw water from where you need, but there's some areas that are a little sparse and you have to make do with what you have. If we go into the fertile land resource tool, pretty much everywhere that's not the steep mountains will have access to fertile ground, and everywhere that is a hill of any kind basically has access to ore. However, oil is where things get interesting, and this seems more intentionally placed. You have it at the base of the mountains over here and tucked into the hills over on this side. You have some along coastlines as well, and then this one central pocket here. And then otherwise, there really isn't any other oil on the map. There's large sections without it. I actually really like the difference there, where these two kind of have like pretty typical layouts, and then the oil pretty usually in a lot of these maps is the one where the map maker kind of gets creative with how they want to place the oil deposits. Now, the last thing we always look at on these maps is the wind direction, and the wind does spawn over here in these hills. So all the wind will blow out from these hills. So please keep that in mind when you build your industrial areas, that it's not upwind. So it does seem like these mountains are kind of a prime spot to dump your industry near. So that's the Spring Valley map. I think this map's really awesome. It's in my top 3 maps. It's got a lot of buildable area, but some areas that you can dive into if you want to add a bit of challenge to it. The only negative part I have to say about this map is that sadly it is one of those maps where everything you see is buyable. There is no extendable land off in the distance, sadly, so we don't have any way to see past our buyable areas, which is a little unfortunate, but is just kind of the state of the game right now. Before we move on from Spring Valley, they do also have a winter variant of the map. So if you don't want to play with snow, you can download the regular Spring Valley. And if you do want to play with snow, you can download the winter snow variant. The next thing I want to talk about is a game-changing mod. This is like one of the big 3 that's come out in the past few weeks here, and that is Water Features by Yen Yang. You know, Yen Yang's the current maker of the Anarchy mod for Cities Skylines 2, as well as, you know what, I just found it better to just go to Yen Yang's profile. I mean, If you're not using Anarchy and Tree Controller, you should. Better Bulldozer is a feature that was in Anarchy that has its own mod now, and now Yen Yang has blessed us with another amazing mod called Water Features. Water Features allows us to have full control of the water in our maps. So if you ever wanted to make streams, delete water sources, Water Features will allow you to do that. It'll also allow you to adjust certain settings with the ocean and a bunch of other stuff. So let's actually dive on in and take a look at that. Okay, so here we are back in Spring Valley because I think that this is a really good map to show off the Water Features mod. So if we go into the landscaping tools here and we go to the water tool, this is where we can actually create our water sources. And when we have one selected, we can actually begin to see the water sources. So these are all of the water sources on the map. As you can see, there's a lot of little creeks that run through the map into little rivers and streams. And then we can also see the sea spawner. So let's dive into each one of these so I can kind of give you a better explanation of what they all do. So this one is a stream. It's a constant variable rate water source, and they give you really good descriptions. But in short, this is one that you would place in the center of your map somewhere. So if you want to start a river off in the mountains here, you can place a water source. So let's go into the mountain ridges over here and figure out some terrain heights over here. So it seems like this valley could be a really cool spot to have a river. So let's say I wanted to put one in. So let's start a little stream right here. The flow might be a little crazy at first, but we can fix that in a little bit. So I'm going to press play now. And as you can see, the water is spawning out of this water source here. And if we don't like it anymore, we can actually just right click to delete it. And you can do that to every single water source on the map, which is pretty cool. We're going to obviously add it back in. And if you want your water simulation to speed up, all you have to do is open developer mode, go to simulation, and you go down here to water. And if you turn up your water simulation speed, it will speed up the rate at which water simulates, essentially. Do keep in mind, though, that this will in fact hurt your performance because it is simulating water at a much faster speed. So as you can see now, we now have more water pumping out through here, and we have a whole river. This was obviously something that we couldn't do up until this point in Cities Skylines, and I know it's something that a lot of people have been asking for. So that's one thing we can do. Let's actually reduce the flow now. Let's put the flow down to 0.5 instead. We'll keep the radius the same, and let's spawn the water. And as you can see, it's quite less severe. There's a lot less water coming out of that. And in fact, let's delete that and make it even smaller. Let's go with a 0.2. So there we go. You can see how thin that stream is now as it comes down the river and makes a new little creek in the valley here. So now, just to prove a point, any of these ones that are pre-made into the map, so if we go over to this one right here, we can actually right click. Let's actually increase the water sim speed here and press play. And as you can see, it will start despawning that water, and it will no longer spawn that water source. And that was one that was built into the map. So just keep that in mind as well, that you can actually manipulate almost all the water sources in the game with this mod. So there's also lakes. We're going to skip this one for now. And we're going to go over to lake, and lake does exactly what you think it does. It will generate a lake based on the actual height, depth basically, that you want the water to be created at. So let's create a little pond here. So we are going to, well, we have to go into the viable area. Let's just do that just for the sake of the video. We're going to drop down the height here. Let's make just like a big pit here. So we're going to go in here to this little, I guess, lake I've made here. We're going to drop the radius down to like 9-ish, and I'm going to right click on the ground to set an elevation point for the lake. I'm going to then click that, and as you can see, the water begins to spawn. So let's go to the water sim speed and speed that up. And you can see it's spawning, but it's not spawning very much because the elevation isn't set very high. So let's right click that water source and actually increase it up to maybe right here. So now if I click and spawn water, the water now spawns up to a much higher height. So you can actually create an artificial lake with this. Now, I have sometimes had trouble getting the water source to stay at the height I want it to stay at. I think that might just be part of the course when working with water in this game and not necessarily an issue with the mod itself, but this does at least give you the ability to make lakes, which is not something that we previously had before. So regardless of how finicky it is, it's still an improvement for those of us looking to make water sources. Now, the one I skipped is River, which is a border water source, as well as Sea, which is also a border water source. So much like how Stream and Lake is a stagnant water source, whereas Stream is a constant flowing water source, the River and the Sea versions are alternate variants of them that must be placed towards the edge of the map, because these are constantly flowing and spawning from outside of the area. So they're not spawning inside the map, and they can't really be covered up because they're going to be outside the edge of the buildable area. Now, this map doesn't have like an outside river kind of flowing from it to be able to create that water source, but it does have the actual ocean water sources that exist out over here on the edges of the map. So I haven't messed around with these two very much, but feel free to play around with them. This at least gives us the tools to be able to learn and understand them. And Sully did a video on the water systems in the game, in which he builds some more amazing, crazy stuff. So I'll leave a link to that down in the description. Now, one last thing before we get out of here and move on to another mod, we can actually go into the options and go over here to, where is it, water features. Make sure that you have, let's see here, enable tide and waves turned off. I think this is on by default. I found that it really messed up my streams as well. Like, this was also affecting, it was a global water effect, so it was affecting my streams as well. While this adds waves and tides to the actual ocean water, it also affects the streams, I found. So I would suggest turning this one off unless you're trying to take like a beauty shot, because it will affect the water sources throughout your entire map. But there's some other settings in here. I think Sully goes through them in his video, so make sure you guys go and watch Sully's video if you want to learn more about this mod. Now, I guess I got ahead of myself with that previous explanation of water features, because I guess the next one would be Better Bulldozer, which is just a splinter of Anarchy Mod. So Anarchy Mod no longer has the Bulldozer tools and features, and Yin Yang split that off into a separate mod called Better Bulldozer. This way, Anarchy doesn't need an update all the time when Yin Yang wants to add features or changes to the bulldozing mechanics of the game. It's in its own separate mod, so make sure that if you guys were using Anarchy before, you download Better Bulldozer. After Better Bulldozer is another fantastic mod that actually is much like Better Bulldozer, where it comes from another mod, and that's Ultimate Monitor. Ultimate Monitor is a combination of Unemployment Monitor and City Vitals Watch, basically allowing you to monitor tons of stuff with your city and really going into the background of the game and looking at everything that's available to you. There's also the InfoLoom mod, which you can use both, and you can see a ton of really great and awesome stuff about your city when using Ultimate Monitor especially. So let's dive in and take a look at Ultimate Monitor. Okay, so here we are in my city of Albert Booty. I think it's going to start snowing here. Yep, immediately. As soon as I press on pause, it's going to start snowing. That I have been building over on my Twitch stream as new mods for the game come out. So if you guys are ever interested in watching along and helping me build this city, just in terms of modding, so you guys can see it's a little bit simpler over here, and then we started to get really complex as more mods began to come out for the game, you guys can take a look over on my Twitch stream. However, the reason we're diving in here is to actually take a look at Ultimate Monitor. And there is some really important things to point out with Ultimate Monitor, is that it is an extension, or I guess not even really an extension, it's a combination of two mods that already exist. And those are Unemployment Monitor, which we can find right here, and City Monitor, which we can find right here. Now, these were individual mods, and they are now combined into one mod. So they come with a really nice UI as well, and you can monitor things like your unemployment, your homeless households. It's basically, if you had both of these mods before, not too much has really changed with them. It's just now they're one mod. But I did want to show them off for those of you who maybe didn't have these or didn't know what they were. Next up is one of the big three that I was talking about in the beginning of the video, and that is Surface Extensions, which is an extra landscaping tools extension pack by Triton Supreme. Now, this is a non-essential extension pack to extra landscaping tools. So if you're totally satisfied with the way extra landscaping tools as a mod currently functions, and you don't need the extra surfaces that this mod provides, then there really is not too much of a reason to get it. But let me sell you on it, because this mod adds a ton of custom-made surfaces to the game and just allows a little bit more of a UI change that might be better for you. So let's dive on in and take a look at surface extensions. Okay, so here we are back in Albert Booty. It is still snowing, don't worry. And over here I built, this was basically a testing phase I kind of did here in order to test out some surfaces for the game. And extra landscaping tools is the next mod we're going to be talking about. So if we go over here to the surfaces button, which is a new button down here on your UI, this is a new button that was created with extra landscaping tools extension. So if you don't have the surfaces extension for extra landscaping tools, the newest mod for it, the expansion pack for it, which needs regular extra landscaping tools to work, just so you know. But if you have the expansion, you'll have this new tab and all of the surfaces. So if we go back over here, your surfaces tabs are gone from in here, and they are actually going to be over here now in the surfaces tab. And they have different tile or different sections of the UI for them. So there's concrete, there is ground, there is wood, and there is tiles. And they add a bunch of new custom assets. So like these red bricks, this was something we didn't have before. So now we have this red brick tile. If we want to, change a certain section of our town to have red brick instead of, I don't know, just regular tiles or something else, we can put down red brick instead. Or these hexagonal, wow, this was really weird, but this hexagonal tile right here that we can put down as well. This basically just gives us a lot more depth in terms of our ground, because right now, one of the only ways we can really customize our cities in Cities Skylines is with ground textures. And this essentially allows us to have a lot more depth with that. I know they plan on adding a ton to this mod in the future, and this is one of the big ones for me, because I think there is so much that you can do with surfaces in this game that can truly change how your city looks. We can even go through and add things like mulch to the game now if you want to make some flower beds, or another option for a flower bed is Podzol here, which I think has a pretty nice look to it as well. If you wanted to make some foresty floor or some mulch for specific sections of your city, if you want to do some landscaping, you now have the ability to place that kind of stuff down as well. Now, just a reminder, this is not an update for extra landscaping tools. This is a full new extension. So this is an addition, an add-on, if you will, for the mod. So if you want to add these extra surfaces in, or the ability to import your own custom surfaces, which you can actually do on the back end of this mod, as far as I understand it, or at least that's the plan in the future if it's not available already, you can actually do that with this mod. I'm really hopeful that they add in the future potentially some transparent surfaces. If you don't know, some of the surfaces in the game, which you can place down, that's essentially what these are. These are just surfaces in order to customize your city. If you go around your city, you'll have tons of surfaces. All the grass lawns, those are surfaces. Essentially, some of them, one of them actually, very specifically, the forestry surface. This one right here that's connected to the forestry is transparent. It's the only transparent one in the game, so it's the only surface that works properly with snow. I really hope that this mod is able to work with transparent surfaces in the future and allow us the ability to potentially even go through and change all of the grass surfaces in our city and allow for some snowy lawns, because I hate looking at green grass when everything else is snow. Like, I guess it's a flashbang and it's really bright, but it just doesn't really make sense to me. But all in all, this mod has a bright future, and I'm really excited to see what people are able to do with custom surfaces. Now, not to get ahead of myself here, but there are some geometric shape maps that are coming out here by Expired Gaming. Or I'm sorry, Expired Designs. I got that wrong. By Expired Designs, there's 3 of them. One of them appeared as, just be mindful if you want to make a city based on any of these geometric shapes, that one of them I think appeared as a map, and the other one appeared as a save file. So if you download some maps at any point in time, even if I don't talk about them on here, and you aren't sure where they are, try to check to see if they're actually a save file. That's something I've noticed some map makers have been doing, is they've just been making a save file and basically uploading that to Thunderstore instead. So give that a look. But if these are something that interests you, I think they've been doing a really good job with them. And if you want to build a more neo-future-esque layout for your city, these could be really cool for that. Now, if we backtrack up, there is Traffic Reducer Remover, which disables the mechanics that decreases traffic as your city gets larger. So Traffic Reduction Remover is a mod I haven't really tested out, but as far as I understand it, it's supposed to actually increase the amount of traffic that your city has. So if you don't feel like you're challenged really by the traffic system in the game as it currently is, this in theory is supposed to increase the amount of traffic that goes through the game, because apparently there's a mechanic on the back end that kind of like slopes the traffic down as your city gets bigger in a way to like help manage the game. So that way it's not too many sims kind of navigating from point A to point B, negatively affecting performance, yada, yada, yada. Traffic Reduction Remover stops that and basically allows the game to truly spawn the amount of traffic that it really wants to spawn, especially as your city gets larger. There will be a pretty significant performance hit. I have not tested this mod, so if you have tested this mod, let me know down in the comments, and then if somebody else is curious, they might see your comment and learn from it. Next up is another really cool mod called Tree Wind Controller by Donut Monger. Now, it does pretty much exactly what you think it does. It allows you to go in and make some fine-tune changes to how wind affects trees. So these could be things like knocking the trees fully on their side. You can have gale-forced winds on your trees in your city if you want to. You can also change the direction in which the trees blow, how much shake and wobble they have. There's mods like this in Cities Skylines 1, and obviously we now have it in Cities Skylines 2. So I'll dive on in and show you a brief explanation of this one. Okay, we're back in Albert Booty. It's still snowing, don't worry. And we're gonna go and take a look at the tree controller mod. So the tree wind controller mod. So we are going to go in here, and as you can see, the trees are shaking just ever so slightly. Just very slightly back and forth, they're waving. We can, first off with this mod, disable all wind. So if you don't want your trees to shake, I guess it might improve your performance potentially. I'm not really too sure about the legitimacy of that, to be quite honest, but there's a potential that it could net you some performance increase. But if you wanted to, you could do things like increase the wind strength. Now, the UI is a little funky. You have to make sure you double click, but I mean, look at that. I mean, like those trees are like tipping over. They're about to break off. If you want to like simulate like a huge storm in your city, you could really do that with this mod. Another thing is wind strength variance. So this will actually create a level of variance in the wind strength. So it'll actually come through in almost like a gust. So as you can see, it's kind of settling down, and it'll eventually like pick back up and get really intense again, which is really cool if you wanted to simulate some more variability in terms of how your trees shake. And do keep in mind that it's only the real trees that do this, not the imposter trees. So if you don't know the difference between imposter trees and regular trees, the imposter trees are the ones that simulate when you zoom out. So those are the trees that generate in their lower poly versions, and they don't have as many effects in order to help performance. This is a very typical effect that happens in video games, and it does happen in Cities Skylines 2 as well. So as you zoom in, you see it renders into the full tree, and it looks a little jarring because it is quite different. So keep that in mind when you do this as well. But there's a lot of different options in here, and you can feel free to play around with them. You can also change the wind direction of the tree and make them dance if you want to. And you can also change the variance so they start like whipping around together. Look at that. So now they're like spinning in circles. And you can change how long it takes for them to go through each variance period as well. Or you can turn it off. Now, finally is the last mod of the big three that I was talking about earlier. This is Find Stuff. And much like Cities Skylines 1, it's basically Find It. Now, this mod is not without its faults, and it's not really due to the modders and mostly due to what's available to them inside the game. But this mod adds a ton of really great features that you've probably been missing from Cities Skylines 1. So without further ado, let's dive on in, and I can show you guys everything that this mod has to offer. Okay, now before we dive into the actual Find Stuff option in the game, one thing that this mod has that no other mod has really done yet, and I know that I believe the creator of Move It, Cuboid, is working on to have like potentially an official version when Cities Skylines 2 official modding kind of comes out, is a picker mod. So a picker mod was something that was in Cities Skylines 1 that Cuboid made, the maker of Move It. So that way you could take an eyedropper tool, essentially, select a building, and then it would pop it up so you could place another one of them. Well, the Find Things mod, is that what it's called? Find Stuff mod actually has one built in over here in the bottom right. So you can select the eyedropper and you can see it starts to highlight all these buildings. So let's say I want to place one of these. So we select that and boom, now we have access to that building and we can place it however we choose. So I can place that down right there. Obviously, it's not a signature building, so we need to zone underneath of it. But if you have the Ploppable Reco mod and all of your buildings are Ploppable Reco, this wouldn't actually need the zoning then. But much like all the other assets in the game, you can just delete it. So not a big deal. But if we go back to the Pick Stuff mod, this is really cool. It allows us to take residential buildings if we want to and turn those on, or actually pick those and like place multiple of the same one if we want to. We can also grab regular assets and it will find and locate them and allow us to place more of them. This is a feature that I have been wanting for quite a long time. I'm not really too sure if there is a hotkey for this mod. Let's find out. Yeah, enable picker shortcut. So it is control click. So now you can use control click and you can also enable expert mode in the Find Stuff mod. If activated, you have access to potentially dangerous objects crashing the game or breaking the save games. This is basically dev mode objects that you really don't have access to otherwise. These are things like invisible paths, for example. So in order to access the Find Stuff, you go down here to the bottom right where you find the eyeglass and you have access to the Find Stuff. Now, when you open this, if you're not using Tweak UI, your UI for it will probably look like this. I would definitely suggest getting Tweak UI for this mod because otherwise it makes it feel really squished. And while I wish it added more rows instead, when working in conjunction with Tweak UI, it actually stretches out these objects so you can actually see them a little better if they have UI options. But there is quite a few things to look at, so let's actually go back through and set everything to the first button here. So when you first open it, it will look like this basically. This is how it probably should and will look here. There's quite a few things we can already kind of look at though. We can type in a search bar here. So if we want to type in residential, boom. So we can find things with the residential tags as we can see up at the top here, and we can scroll through them. So we have EU mixed residential, but if we scroll down, we can find NA residential, the Painter Mansion, basically anything that's classified as residential when we type in residential, which is really great. This game is definitely taking up quite a significant performance hit as it's searching. As the mod gets more fleshed out, I'm sure it'll become less performance heavy, but as of right now, that is basically how it works. So another really cool thing you can notice is that you can add a star to this stuff and you can go in here and now we can have a favorite. So if there's certain objects that you're looking for all the time, you can star them and add them to your favorites. There is a bunch of different views, so we can use the list view here. We can use a double list view, which is really nice. We can use the grid view, which has preview images for objects that have the preview images. And earlier when I said I think that this mod has a little bit to go, this is one of the reasons why, and it's because the game itself does not have preview images for these objects, and it's not easy for the modders to obviously create preview images for a lot of these assets. So a lot of this stuff you're just gonna have to go based on the name and then click and preview basically. So like this AC machine window, you know, we have to like click and preview and see what it looks like before we place it. There's also no way to raise objects right now, obviously. So like you're just placing stuff at ground level as well. So keep that in mind. But if we go back in here, because I have that experimental, like advanced expert user mode, as you can see, when we go through here, we can see these like red objects. And when you place one of these red objects, they give you warnings that say this asset cannot be removed with the Bulldozer tool after placing. Now, if you are, again, an expert user, you might know that some of these objects are actually destroyable with the better Bulldozer mod. So if we type in invisible, okay, I might have lied to you. I cannot get anything to pop up that's experimental in dev mode. So I'm not really too sure what's up with that. Maybe it just needs to be patched. This mod's brand new, so it might still have some kinks to it. Or maybe I need to reload the game. I'm not really too sure. But that in theory should give you access to the dev mode items. Then you should be able to place those and it'll give you warnings and all sorts of other stuff. But regardless of that, you have some other options. So obviously we have the favorites tab here. We have the actual landscaping tab. So this gives us access to trees and bushes. And up here in the top right, there's further filters. So this is the tree one. And I think if we hover over these, it was giving me the ability to see what they were before, but now it's not giving me the pop-up. But I thought if I hovered over these, it would tell me like these are trees and then these are other landscaping shrubbery. But regardless, this is other landscaping shrubbery and this is tree. Hopefully they have new UI icons for these. That way we can tell the difference a little bit better. Down the road, we can go into here and select the roads option, and we can have access to all of the roads and networks as well. So things like sewage and stuff is all in here, and we can actually go through and select all of the different filter options and then the miscellaneous ones as well. We can go in here and select signature buildings, and this gives us access to all of the signature buildings. If you're like me and you have ploppable Rico, this will also give you access to all of the ploppable Rico buildings as well. So when I click on that, obviously it's going to yell at me, but this allows us to place a signature version of a growable building because we're using the ploppable Rico mod. So if you wanted to get even more fine-tuned with the detailing in your city and not have to worry about zoning, you can use this, but do keep in mind that when and if you use this, it does appear like Find It wants to throw you over to the signature building view once you select the building. And once you select the building, you also need to keep in mind that you need the ploppable Rico mod in order to do that, in order for it to not despawn. So we can also access parks and obviously parking lots as well. We can go into the zonable areas. So these give us access to the zonable buildings. Again, there's no preview images for these, sadly, but it still gives us the option to sort through them. So we can go through commercial, residential, office, and industry. Over here, we have access to what I think are props. So these ads are all of the billboards in the game. Right here, obviously, we still cannot place them up in the air. They have to be at ground level. But we have access to all of these billboards. This is pretty much every single billboard in the game. We have access to some fences right here, some posters as well. As we can see right here, there's this poster. It does look like it'll snap to the road direction, which is kind of nice. But again, it's stuck in the ground. I haven't figured out a way to move it yet because Move It mod's not out, but down the road, we probably will have access to that. And there's a bunch of other stuff in here as well. So basically, you guys can go through and sort all of this stuff. There's a bunch of different options. If you've been looking for a Find It tool, this one is it. I am definitely going to be using the Pick Stuff mod quite frequently because I have been dying for this for quite a while. I have been wanting this for quite a bit. The only downside is that it doesn't look like you can select networks with it. No, it doesn't appear like you can select networks for it. So that's my suggestion to whoever made this mod. I think it was 89 Pleasures and Optimus for you guys to make it so I can highlight networks, because that was one of the main reasons why I used Picker Mod in Cities Skylines 1. So I would absolutely adore the ability to be able to select networks with it as well. So I think we are officially caught up on all of the mods that currently exist in Cities Skylines 2, as well as all of the maps that I think are worthy of some highlights right now currently available on Thunderstore. If you made it to the end of the video, please let me know down in the comments, and also don't forget to turn on that notification bell, because that notification bell lets you know about the other cool videos that I'm working on the channel, like the News Tower and Paralives Games Breakdown. I want to do more games breakdowns. I like doing them. I think they're kind of nice. If you guys know of a new game coming out that's got a lot of hype behind it, let me know down in the comments, and I might just do a game trailer breakdown for it. And don't forget to check out my Paralives breakdown as well as my News Tower video. Anyways, I want to thank you guys for watching today. I appreciate it. I'll let you get on with your day. I've been Kodiak the Kodiak, and I'll catch you guys in the next one. Deuces.